One of the most enjoyable and productive partnerships that I have had the good fortune to be part of during my years with Tupperware was a very close relationship with Boys and Girls Clubs of America. For 2 decades during the years when Rick Goings was the chairman of Tupperware and served on the board of Boys and Girls Clubs of America, the company was honored to sponsor several important programs, none more iconic than the National Youth of the Year program. We got to see and appreciate in a very up-close and personal way the impact that the Boys and Girls Clubs experience had on the young people they serve. So it is very exciting to say that today, the largest partner the World Youth Clubs has in its commitment to serve young people is the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. BGCA is the source of unparalleled program resources that have been developed and have proven effective over more than a century. Today, we are thrilled to have with us Chrissy Chen, the National Director for Youth Development Programs and Innovation for Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Her session is entitled Maximizing Impact, Leveraging Boys and Girls Clubs of America Programs. And we should note that the new WYC affiliate portal, which you heard about earlier as part of our new website, will contain all of the wonderful resources that BGCA is making available to us. Chrissy is going to tell us how to make the most of those programs on behalf of the youth we serve. Please welcome Chrissy Chen.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome, and thank you all for the opportunity to be with you today. It's been a joy to hear about the work you're doing and to hear from your various presenters. And because of the reference to Youth of the Year, I'll say that I'm so thankful that Nico, our new Youth of the Year, who we just celebrated, will be our spokesperson for this year. I want to share with you all a link in the chat to some of the materials that I'll use during the session. And then, as you just heard, the World Youth Club affiliate portal will include some follow-up resources. To get us started, I would like to invite you into a reflection with me for a moment. If you are willing to choose a number, choose 1, 2, or 3 from one of these circles, then in just a moment, you'll see a question in that circle. I'll invite you to reflect on your answer to that question. And if you're willing, you could share it in the chat or just take a moment on your own. So here are these 3 questions. We've got some people who committed to number 2. I'll invite you to reflect and share your answer if you'd like in the chat. Thank you to those willing to share. We have a note that the place where you felt most comfortable being yourself was at home with family or playing sports, reading, having cousins who asked questions, becoming analytic, curious, watching cartoons. Thank you all for reflecting. So whether you found yourself thinking about an environment that felt safe and supportive to you, or a meaningful experience that helped you to learn something or drove you to want to learn something more, or an adult whose relationship with you encouraged you and supported you, what you've been reflecting on are really the essential ingredients of a high-quality club experience. Boys and Girls Clubs of America uses a formula for impact to describe the impact that clubs have on young people. And what you'll notice is that the questions that you are reflecting on all relate to those 3 bubbles that make up a high-quality club experience. Because in order to drive impact and to reach our ambitious outcomes for young people, which include developing essential social and emotional skills, experiencing health and well-being, demonstrating character and leadership, having academic success, and ultimately being prepared for life and workforce, first, the youth and teens in our community need to experience safe, inclusive environments, meaningful programs and experiences, and supportive relationships. Very soon, some of my colleagues, Omar and Jason, will be here as well to focus on outcomes. But I would love for us to spend a little bit of time zooming in on those meaningful programs and experiences. There are a number of ways that youth development programs, like all of yours, make programs and experiences meaningful for children and teens. But one structure that I'd like to share with you all is what we call the elements of a high quality session. For any of you that are planning to access and use the Boys and Girls Club programming, this structure is baked into all of our programs so that whether young people are painting a mural or playing soccer or working on a service project that they've designed, they're always going to be experiencing these elements and building both essential skills and skills related to the outcomes of those programs. We'll start from the beginning. The first two elements of a high quality session are really about establishing that safe environment and that community in which to learn and grow together. A warm welcome is an opportunity to greet young people by name, to engage in meaningful conversation, to follow up about that thing they told you last week to show that you remembered and that you care. And then a community builder is a great opportunity to ask open-ended questions or invite young people into activities that are going to help them to know one another better. Earlier today, I heard Mike McTurnan say, we joined as strangers and left as family, and that is what effective community building sounds like. So you all have certainly experienced this, and this is baked into every program session that we want to implement. After the warm welcome and community builder, group agreements are the next element of a high quality session. These are agreements about how we want to treat each other, and they come from some guiding questions, which are, how do we want to feel during this program? What will we do in order to feel this way? And how will we handle conflict? What might emerge here is young people saying, well, I want to feel heard during this program. And what we can all do to ensure that we feel heard is that when we're having a group discussion, there will be one speaker at a time, and we'll listen to that one speaker. As a group agreement, that feels a bit different than a rule that adults have set and youth are expected to follow, because instead the whole group is agreeing that this is a way that we want to treat one another, and then the whole group can uphold these agreements. At the beginning of a program cycle, we recommend that these are established, and then in each subsequent program session, there's an opportunity to either remember that group agreement, to ask young people if they want to change any of the agreements, and then uphold them throughout. After we've established our context, established how we're going to engage with one another, it's time for our main activity. Main activities, we often say, should be hands-on and minds-on, so they're interactive, but also prompting deep thinking. And I want to share with you all an acronym that we've been using recently, which is to make it EPIC. So recently, in an evaluation of Smart Moves, which is one of the programs that's going to be available through the affiliate portal, we found that the programming effectively drove the skills and behaviors and mindsets it was intended to drive when facilitators connected to the purpose, and when young people found the program engaging, interesting, and challenging. This nicely lines up to the acronym for EPIC, which is a great reminder that meaningful programs and experiences can drive youth outcomes when they are, in fact, epic. I want to ask you to reflect for a moment in the programs and experiences that you offer young people. Which of these do you find yourself most consistently offering young people, whether it's the E, the P, the I, or the C? You certainly don't have to share, but if you'd like to shout out your program in the chat by sharing which of these elements of the acronym you most often are offering young people in your programming, that's wonderful. And you might consider this an opportunity to reflect on where you might want to improve your programming. We know that to make programming feel really engaging, facilitators have to leverage cooperative learning strategies. They have to offer multiple options for engagement to young people. To connect with the purpose, facilitators have to know for themselves why they're running the program, what the goals are, and what specifically they can do to reach those outcomes. This might include some background research on the youth you serve and what their strengths and needs and interests and identities are. It might include some self-reflection so that you get to connect to the purpose of the material. Keeping programming interesting often has to do with understanding what's relevant to the youth you're working with and adapting the program to make sure that it keeps their interest. This could include changing up the examples, changing up some of the questions, changing some of the modalities. Maybe you know that youth in your group would not be interested in writing an essay about a certain topic, but they would be very interested in writing a song about the same topic. So they're still demonstrating that they've learned the content, but they're more interested in the activity. And finally, challenging. This requires you to adapt the level of challenge because not all young people are the same. And so the same activity might feel too easy for some youth and too hard for others. So adjusting your level of support will make it appropriately challenging for everyone. Finally, the last two elements of a high quality session are reflection and recognition. Reflection is critical. In our busy, fast-paced world, it's so easy to skip over this step, but we know that long-term learning requires reflection and that when we pause to think about what we've just learned, why it matters, and what we would like to do next to apply the information, we're much more likely to learn it. Those three questions I just asked, what did we learn, why does it matter, and what do we want to do to apply it, often show up in our framework as what, so what, and now what. That's a framework that we've used for reflection questions in a lot of our programs. Finally, recognition is an opportunity both for the adults in the room to encourage young people and to invite youth to encourage one another. We intentionally choose the word encourage instead of praise to prompt facilitators to not just say, great job, or you were awesome, but to be more specific about what they saw young people doing. To say, for instance, I saw you struggling with that and you kept working at it until you solved it. Or to invite young people to encourage one another to say, who did you notice being really creative today? Or who would you like to celebrate for the way they supported their team? So those reflection and recognition elements conclude the session and leave young people with a chance to think about what they've learned and to feel supported by the adults in the room and their community of peers. Altogether, these elements of a high quality session make up, as I mentioned, all of the Boys and Girls Club programming, but also provide a structure that you can use for any locally developed programming to make sure that various elements are present in the session to support young people along the way. I want to thank you so much for your time and also mention again that if you'd like a copy of the slides or of some handouts that outline the elements of a high quality session and also the EPIC programming framework, then those are included in the link in your chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate the chance to be here with you all.
Thank you, Chrissy, for that comprehensive overview of the impressive program catalog Boys and Girls Clubs of America has to offer. On behalf of all of our youth club affiliates around the world, we want to thank you and BGCA for sharing these programs so generously. We have seen firsthand how these proven BGCA programs can be adopted and adapted if needed to impact kids' lives so positively in other cultures and settings around the globe.